Welcome to the Tokenverse podcast series, where we interview the most inspiring and influential minds to discuss the future of Web3 technologies in the most disruptive fields, including the world of arts, gaming, governance, and economics. We are here to lead you through this paradigm shift by exploring the most groundbreaking trends and cutting-edge solutions. This production is brought to you by DoinGud, an NFT ecosystem focused on inspiring creativity and positive social impact on the world. My name is Christian Bright, and I'm part of the communications team here at DoinGud. I'm joined today with my co-host, Sammy Del Real, who is part of the community team. Our guests for this episode are Joel Thorstensson and Michael Sena of 3Box Labs, the development team behind Ceramic Network and the IDX Identity Protocol. Thank you for joining us today, guys. How's it going?
It's going pretty well.
So we'd love to hear a little bit more about yourselves, your backgrounds, what inspired you to co-found the Ceramic Network. We're definitely interested to get a feel for your personalities and what inspires you. I don't know if you want to start off with Joel, if you want to give us the lowdown first.
Sure. I mean, we were both kind of working on the same project initially, and then kind of that's where 3Box came from. I guess maybe I can start with like a little bit more personal, kind of my background. So started studying like computer science in university, but then I kind of got bored of like figuring out, okay, this is the problem space, and then what's like beyond that. So switched over to physics, and particularly a branch called complex adaptive systems, and that's really where you study like how natural phenomena, but with computation. So how a flock of birds fly together and stay together can actually be described with like a very simple algorithm, and like how forest fires spreads, or how viruses spreads. It's also, you can simulate pretty easily with like simple algorithms. And so that's something that's like really inspired my thinking. And it's really something that's like quite useful in blockchain ecosystem when you're thinking about these emergent economies. And yeah, so both me and Michael worked at a company called Consensus, and we're part of a project called Uport, which did kind of like one of the early identity projects on blockchain in general. And that's eventually where we got the idea to create 3Box Labs and the Ceramic Network.
Amazing. And Michael, what got you into the blockchain space, and furthermore, got you into building what you guys have now?
Yeah, so for me, my blockchain journey came in phases. What feels like a former lifetime ago, I was trading at an investment bank, and this was 2011, and I think Bitcoin had hit $30. And so it kind of caught my attention as I was trading all other kinds of currencies. And saw it as an interesting technology, but was more always interested in what people could build on it besides money. And obviously Bitcoin being very tough to do that, kind of put that interest aside for a while. Fast forward to 2015, I'm doing work related to personalization on the web. Trying to answer the problem, how can we deliver a better experience on a website or an application by allowing users to arrive with all of their data from all of their other applications, sort of versus needing to try to onboard a new user every single time, making them recreate the same information over and over, like their profile, their contacts, their friends, their messages. And so that led me back into blockchain. And so I found Ethereum and saw its potential with, programmability to potentially enable some of these use cases. And so that's where I joined Joel, and we started Uport, and sort of the same idea and sort of driving problem has been what sort of kept us on this journey since then.
How long ago was that when you guys actually brought Uport to life, and then versus where you guys are today?
Yeah, so Uport's origins within Consensus, given Consensus at the time, are a bit hazy. Sort of, Consensus was this group of, at the time, 30-ish people, sort of, working on very nascent areas and applications of blockchain. There was, a group of people working on, at the time, was just collectively referred to as identity, but now sort of included MetaMask as sort of being the wallet and signature implementation, and Uport as sort of being a more specific identity and data management protocol. And so it sort of like evolved from this general research and interest in trying to build these solutions on blockchain.
Yeah, I think Uport probably started as like a weekly Zoom call, like, hey, we need identity, and then like trying to iterate from there.
How sick though, right? I mean, you guys kind of made something come out of a Zoom call naturally, just like this, and ideas flow so long as you run after them. So that's pretty impressive, guys. That's awesome. I love that. Well, to kind of go into a few of the questions that, I would love to personally talk about. I mean, Web3 data architecture. Let's try and unpack this a little bit. The primary difference between Web3 and Web2 applications is their data architecture, right? Web3 applications rely on a user-centric, self-sovereign or sovereign data storage architecture. Help us understand a little bit of this statement to better understand what this really means. This technology is very cutting edge, and many of these concepts are quite complicated. So if you can help us elaborate and understand a little bit more about that, that would be fantastic.
Sure. It's I would say a complex and powerful statement, and realization that Web3 will be built in a user-centric manner. But it's a pretty simple concept. So like really when you break it down, if you think about what makes up an application today, it's in the most simplest terms, a database that lives on a server somewhere. So it's basically where all the data for the entire application is stored. And in that single database, you have data from all of your users, right? So let's say you have 100 users, you have all of those users' profiles and messages and data. And so when you want to sort of get rid of that database and you need somewhere else to store and manage that information, you need to sort of think about where and how it's stored, right? And the only logical way to go from, a model where you have an application and that application has a database to a model where you have a lot of applications and they're all collectively accessing the same database, the right model for organizing data is by the user, because it sort of creates a scenario where, I as a user show up to one application, that application can sort of query me for all of my data and allow, it to be changed. And then when I as a user go to a completely different application, that separate application can also read and make use of the same information. So sort of the nexus of interoperability here really being the person or the participant versus the application.
So in other words, you're kind of giving me as a potential user on an ecosystem more power, more control over my personal data, right?
Yeah, that's totally right.
That's awesome. I mean, I would say that that's pretty important, specifically with, what maybe we have all seen throughout this last couple of years, especially this last year with kind of censorship and otherwise, blocking, not giving opportunities to people to speak or whatever have you, or the loss of their content, right? So I think that's super awesome to hear. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I mean, even thinking about Facebook going down last week, it was 6 hours, but it could have been forever. And I think that incident highlights the importance of decentralized, always available, user-controlled information. In a scenario where Facebook would have been built on infrastructure like Ceramic, if the Facebook interface went down, the user can go to facebook2.com and sort of pull in the same thing and continue using it. So protection against those types of scenarios is definitely a core piece of it.
And this is also kind of, giving everybody the understanding that these are the infrastructures that people like Michael and Joel and their company and their organization are building for the next internet, for the internet that is what is Web3, right? So everyone tuning in, this is something that's really significant for our future in identity and for our future online.
Yeah, I'm a bit curious if you might be able to help us envision a little bit what a user-centric data ecosystem looks like.
Go, Joel.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, you'll have a growing number of actors that are involved, right? So initially, Like it's the users and the application developers, and it's like the very simple use case of, the application developers build something, store that data with the user, so the user has that in their kind of data index or like their data storage, and then so that's like the ecosystem. And as it grows, like developers can start sharing data, but then I think you will have other actors coming in providing like computational services on top of the data, maybe to do some research study based on user behavior, and do that in like various kind of privacy preserving ways. You'll probably have groups of people coming together in kind of data unions, or like having different ways of like protecting their interests as like users for various pieces, or like various chunks of their data in various contexts.
What would be like a good example of that exact scenario?
I mean, like if you have a social network as like a very simple example, like Facebook just takes control over the data and like owns it, and they kind of do whatever they want with it.
Okay.
But if the data is like actually owned by the user, and the user kind of has one or two social network sites they can use that with, those sites still have like a lot of power, because the users can't coordinate to like facilitate some kind of pressure on those two sites. The only pressure they have is like the competition, but that's not super hard. But if there's like a union of users that can like come together and collectively say like, our data can only be used in this way, not the other way, otherwise we'll kind of move away from your platform, then you have like the users collectively as a community has much more power.
Amazing. So more community driven, less about the apps kind of having the ownership.
Yeah, and I think that's the first step. I think further steps could be like actually the algorithms that control the content of your attention, right? That's now driven by for-profit companies. Those algorithms could actually be owned by communities, and the communities can like decide what those algorithms optimize for.
So could, in theory, someone like utilizing something with identity, with IDX, could they also choose who gets, advertisement and who gets to sell? Like, could you effectively sell your identity to advertisers if you wanted to, as a form of income utilizing this type of technology?
Yeah, I think that's like exactly the thing you can do if you have like a community that decides, who get access to the data, and actually like how the kind of, if you have like a feed algorithm that gives you like the next post that you're supposed to see as you're scrolling in like an app, then if that community can, gate and decide what type of advertisements gets in there.
Very cool. I mean, that's a whole different, a paradigm shift, I would say, in general, for people online to be able to know that, instead of getting these ads sent to them, they get to choose what ads, and potentially also be earning some sort of, minimal fractionalized, income from that, because of the ability to sell your data to the companies or the brands or whomever you choose to see, ads from.
Yeah, and maybe like there's even better models that are like less addy and more kind of like, an ad is supposed to, give information. If you think about like the utility of an ad, give information to people that want to, utilize or consume or borrow some resource. And I think we can do a much better job of that function of like, providing the right information at the right time, without that being like the way we think about advertisement today.
Changing value propositions a little bit.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Love it. So knowing that, since we're talking about, identity and stuff, and knowing that you guys have 900 projects building on IDX, we'd love for you guys to tell us more about what that means and what that protocol is, and what's attracting developers over to you guys. Like what's going on? What's the secret sauce? Maybe you can't tell us the secret sauce, but
Well, all the source code's open. There's not much more beyond that.
Dang.
But yeah, you're right. IDX has been really popular and it actually was the reason why we created Ceramic in the first place. So we had, as we were working on 3box.
Wait, I apologize to interrupt. I didn't realize. So IDX was first.
The idea for IDX and the design for IDX came first. And that sort of drove a lot of the initial design requirements for Ceramic itself to say, how could we create such a protocol that acts as a decentralized user-controlled data store that is maximally interoperable across applications and maximally interoperable across all of users' wallets. And so we really wanted to provide this like unifying place where applications can, read and write data, sort of like the core interactions of storage, in a way that, supports the composability and the interoperability that we talked about before. And so, yeah, 900 projects is great. What's even better is as more applications start to build on the same decentralized identity protocol, and these are applications from a bunch of different blockchain ecosystems, some Near, some Ethereum, some Tezos, and so now we have a system where no matter which wallet or chain a user is using, they can always, access their same data, is really kind of transformative. And so
huge. I mean, this is big time, especially coming from, a 10, 11 years of being in blockchain with Bitcoin being out into the world and having this technology out to the public. And, fast forward from 2009 to 2021, and now we have the abilities to build systems like what you guys have created to allow me, a normal user, have my identity on a blockchain and be able to be utilized on other systems and other platforms and still hold that same identity. This is massive stuff. And I think that being a part of this ecosystem here with us at DoinGud, and we were actually part of the early launch program, with you guys. We're super, super, super stoked and extremely thrilled to be the first NFT ecosystem on Ceramic. Would you mind telling us a little bit about kind of how that what inspired you guys about our vision, and then also kind of like how it aligned with your guys' ethos with creating this new way for people to participate on blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, so we, as you mentioned, we are only live on mainnet right now to select partners. And so, when we're trying to think about, what are some of the best use cases and demonstrations of the power of Ceramic in the wild, it was really important for us to not ignore the NFT space, which everyone, loves and is exploding. And, I think it was also important for us to partner with a platform that's rapidly growing and sort of standing for something more than, just buying and selling NFTs. And sort of the mission that, DoinGud represents was really attractive because, in many ways, it doesn't share the same exact vision with Ceramic, but we are both trying to sort of change behavior for the better in many ways. And so, yeah, we thought you guys were a great launch partner.
Well, thanks for selecting us.
Hopefully the selection process doesn't last for too much longer. I mean, we do have every intention of moving in the next few months to a completely open mainnet. So, it's only the next few months where hopefully there will be this process. We're kind of tightening the final screws now.
Awesome.
Ever expanding and ever changing. That's always kind of the thing with this space, and it's all the time. So you guys are honestly doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was curious to know, I guess at what stage during the development process did you guys decide that multi-chain or cross-chain really was the future, and this is, needing to dedicate resources to build this out and make this happen?
I mean, it was really at the inception of the Ceramic network, because we had been building the 3box SDK before, and that was catered to Ethereum. And we're like always, yeah, this is great, but there's all of these new layer one blockchains coming online. And so as we were designing Ceramic, because we needed to like build a better like foundation for what now is like IDX, the thinking like behind multi-chain was like in there from the start.
Forward thinking. It's great. I like that.
I mean, it goes back as far as like, even beyond Ceramic, like we, back in 2016, when we were at Uport, we had co-founded the Decentralized Identity Foundation along with Microsoft and some other projects working in decentralized identity at the time. And at that point, the goal, the first goal there was to create a technology or chain agnostic standard for how to do decentralized identity. And so, we've been thinking about how to do chain agnostic or cross-chain identity, I think, since 2016.
What can I ask? Like, I mean, this was definitely meant to be a little bit further along, but in our chat. But now that you're talking about this, and you mentioned since 2016 that you guys have been developing this, like, what have been some of those hurdles, right? I mean, you guys are really pioneering in a really new place for many people. So tell me a little bit about those hurdles that you guys had, especially early on, and maybe like even the hurdles that you may be facing today.
Should we start with hurdles on Uport?
I think it's probably like more market or technology hurdles. I guess I could start. So, I mean, like the biggest thing that has changed since 2016 is the Web3 ecosystem and supporting technology stack, right? Like back then, we were playing in complete white space, and it was really sort of hard to know how the pieces and the layers and components would all unfold around us. And so many of the early projects from that era ended up building too much. They weren't focused enough because nothing else was around them. And in order to do anything, they needed, to assume so much surface area. But, as the stack around us matured, as the sophistication of the average Web3 developer matured, and sort of there were better application examples to draw inspiration from when building, a new application. All of those things sort of really change the climate and sort of makes now the right time for sort of deploying and going live with this type of infrastructure.
Amazing. And do you guys, I mean, obviously having this foresight and constantly, almost being forced to be thinking about the future and knowing, almost having to think about this like you have a crystal ball, and you kind of have to try and envision where we're going and what possibilities of troubles we may have. Can you guys elaborate a little bit about, based on now that we're in 2021, we have this infrastructure available to us. You guys have done such an amazing job of creating, the interoperability and the identity. What are some of the hurdles that, in the future what does that look like? Are there hurdles for people that have this ability now or not?
I think one of the big hurdles for usability is going to be like how to, make the user understand different kind of security of different chains. And like, there's going to be all of these different chains, and you're going to have to transfer assets across them. And I think initially, like, users are going to be like siloed in some ecosystems, but eventually they're going to, have to travel around. And so like making that experience really great, I think, is a big hurdle, because building a wallet for one blockchain is a huge project and a lot of work. But like making one that supports all of them, or like a big subset of them, that's just almost impossible. So like that's, I think, is one big hurdle that probably needs like outside of the box thinking.
Sure. And like, I think that this is kind of where it is a great segue for us to tell. I mean, like, for us, it's extremely exciting to have the partnership with you guys that enables us to create dynamic NFTs and allow DoinGud users to have instant access to their NFTs in a single place, right? So this can mean different wallets, just like you were saying, different blockchains, Their entire NFT collection and identity are in sync and at their fingertips. So for a lot of people, this probably is the first time that they're hearing about what a dynamic NFT is and why that's important or why that's revolutionary in the case of, you know, the systems in which you guys have created.
Yeah, if you could help us maybe understand how dynamic NFTs are really revolutionary, or break that down for our audience, that would be great.
Okay,
I mean,
I can go. I was giving you time, Joel. So, I mean, dynamic NFTs are game changing, right? Until this point, NFTs were largely one of two standards, right? And, you know, most NFTs generally followed this common way to do them. You know, the most popular and well-known is the non-fungible NFT standard. And, you know, in that case, you mint a non-fungible token. And when you do that, you can include something in that token, which says this token has this file, right? And so when you own the token, or if you look at the token, you can look at this picture or other types of media. And, you know, it's like the images of your apes and everything else that you see when you buy an NFT. But with dynamic NFTs enabled by Ceramic, that NFT file, so your image or your song or whatever it is, can change over time according to whatever types of rules you as an application developer want to set. And so, you know, the first way that we're making this possible is by saying, you can actually enable an NFT to own a piece of data on Ceramic. So it can own its own file, and whoever owns that NFT can make updates to that file. And an NFT doesn't have to be limited to one file. It can have an infinite number of files. And now, as that NFT's ownership transfers, you know, between users as it's bought and sold, those users get automatic access to that NFT's data, and the access of the old owner is automatically removed. And so you can actually build completely new experiences powered by these NFTs that aren't just, you know, minting an image that never changes. Instead, you can actually embed a lot more functionality into NFTs themselves.
So kind of like in theory, you're saying I could create, I'm a creator, and I can create a static file NFT that's really meant to be an MP4 or some sort of video file, right? And maybe perhaps I launch this NFT or this NFT as a static file. And once 25% of the community has collected this, a little bit of this file starts moving and starts kind of evolving in real time. This is kind of like more or less what you're talking about. And then, like, let's say 100%, we sell out, everything is great, thanks. Now I have the ability to say, now this NFT is alive, full throttle, it's doing its thing. And then the next evolution of this, maybe in like 3 months, you know, I can have this NFT be doing another thing. Maybe perhaps it's opening up a Christmas gift for December.
Yeah, you can definitely do all of that.
That sounds sick. Okay, wow. Well, that's pretty exciting for sure, I would say. You know, a lot of that concept, I think, is so new, and that will allow for so much more creativity, you know, for artists. I mean, how much more experiential can we get online, especially as the more and more time progresses and we're realizing, sure, things are opening up, but things have changed. Things are still very different. And I think they're going to continue to kind of go down this way of being able to build beautiful economies, build beautiful communities, build dynamic and immersive experiences online that we get to enjoy from our homes, and we get to enjoy from the vacation that we may be on or wherever around the world, but it's available to us at our fingers. And it opens up a whole different kind of paradigm, I think, that you guys are also enabling. So very exciting on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome seeing all the creativity in the NFT space right now.
For sure.
Yeah, it's thrilling, really. So I was curious if you might be able to give us some insight. We talked about how DoinGud was selected for the early launch access program. I was curious if you could tell us which other projects have been selected to participate in the mainnet.
Okay, Joel muted. That's me. So we, I think about 25 are live right now and are going live this week. And some of the earliest projects to go live were an Explorer, which we thought would provide a large amount of usefulness to developers on Ceramic. So a way to search for a piece of data in the network from the identifier. And so that's a pretty good developer tool. Then we enabled self-ID, which it's an application that you can use to go create your decentralized identity and profile. And I'm sure the one that will show up and be usable within DoinGud. And so that, you can go to self.id right now and do that. The next set of projects.
So to interject, like, I don't have an ID. I don't is that something, for instance, I'm wherever I am on the planet and I don't have an ID, but I do have access to the internet. Is this somehow now an ability for me to, I guess exist?
That's like a slightly complex and multifaceted question with a lot of nuance to it, but theoretically, there would be a way for you to, as long as you can, either remember a password or do something to connect to the internet, then you could retrieve all of your information.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, the other thing I would love to know is, since you guys are talking about a little bit about some of the developments, like what are the long-term visions for, identity, especially on the blockchain? What is that kind of like? What are some, 10 years down the road look like?
I'm interested to hear Joel's take on this. I know we'll have good ones.
And maybe not 10 years. Let's go 5 years. Let's scale it back a little bit, because really we're not 2025 isn't far away. So let's go a little bit. Let's go 5 years. What does 5 years in the future with identity look like, with the abilities that you guys have created already, and then of course knowing where you want to go?
Yeah, I think the most interesting things we'll see is less about kind of the traditional kind of way of seeing identity, of like having various KYC or like credentialing systems, and more about kind of the dynamic aspect of interacting in a bunch of DAOs, and then interacting with other people and using applications, and from that building your set of data. And then as you have that, and you're like you build this kind of trust network or social graph between the different communities you're engaged with, actually start building a reputation, and that reputation can be contextual to the different communities you're in. And I think by having data that lives inside of these open ecosystems, we can actually have not one reputation score that is created by one company that controls all of this, but we can actually have various different projects. Yeah, and like contextual reputation based on the app you're interacting with. So I think we'll see like an ecosystem of various approaches to this type of access by your contributions to a project, or kind of finding, actually like pairing groups of people that might never have found each other to work on a project together to achieve something new. And that's like actually looking at past experience to like build good teams, or for some end goal, or just for fun.
So if I'm like a bully on the internet and just trolling people, and not contributing in a positive light, or the inverse of that, where I'm just a super baddie, I'm amazing at community building, I'm great at talking about whatever, vice versa, you're able to track or create a database that's on the blockchain that allows for my reputation to reside, and I don't know you from the next person, but you see me online as whoever I am, and you can see, this he's nice, he's a good dude, he's got a great reputation, or the other way, that guy's a bully, or whatever the case, he's bad news.
Right. I think we need to be careful not to create, one score that, everyone looks at and like, oh, that's a bad person. And instead have things that are more contextual to the actual thing you're doing.
So more compartmentalized based on specific needs.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's hard to predict exactly what will happen, but I think the outcome of like having one system that everyone relies on, and then like, we're have some people that are not be able to take part in that system, that's a bad outcome. I think longer term, like probably more on the 10-year mark, maybe longer, we like if we can think about building systems that actually like have that bully or that person that like is behaving badly, actually, the reason they're doing that is probably because they're not feeling so well in some regard, and like actually having systems that can kind of help people that are in need in that way to become more integrated and more kind of friendly or whatever.
That's amazing. That would be pretty phenomenal to be able to kind of create into the existence, man, to help people, guide them or shepherd them into engaging in more positive ways or contributing in positive ways. That would be wonderful.
So I want to take one quick step back, and we understand that there's a new set of tools that are actually coming to developers that want to build the ceramic. Can you tell us about some of those new tools? What's changed, in recent?
And maybe Michael, you have the best overview of this.
Yeah, sure. So we spent a bunch of time talking about IDX already, and sort of what it enables for this user-controlled data storage, and that sort of being the foundation for Web3 applications. And that IDX, we also had a piece of software that developers can add to their application to use IDX. It's called the IDX SDK, and we actually are deprecating that now, and we're replacing it with a collection of new tools that do what IDX did and do much more. And so the first big one there is we're excited to talk about data models. And so we really see the importance of data models as being sort of the key enabler of interoperability of data, right? Because if you have two applications, a social network and a friend's social network and a professional social network. So you have like Twitter and LinkedIn, and they agree on a data model for a profile. Then they both can read and access the same data. But if those two applications pick different data models for their profiles, then their data will not be interoperable. And so data models is now a system where developers can register, discover, and use data models created by others in the community. So, now people are contributing them, and, as they get used, standards will kind of emerge organically based on more applications converging around a standard way to represent some kind of application data. And data models will be really powerful for that. We have big plans. And then the other two are just sort of ways that you can use data models. So one is called Did Data Store, which is the new IDX, and it uses data models to read and write data. And then the other one is Glaze or Self-ID, and that sort of bundles everything together in really simple drop-in packages. So developers really have less to think about when they're adding ceramic to their application.
Huge, man. That's very, very exciting, and makes it much more accessible, I feel, for newcomers coming in that want to participate in creating more decentralized ecosystems and allowing for them to know that these tools exist in one compact spot like that. That's fantastic.
Glad to hear. Yeah. IDX was getting so much use. We were like, okay, it's really time that we accelerate the development of version 2. So this is really that.
Well, and that
let's go.
Yeah, right. And like that being said, I mean, that in itself is sick, but you guys have had a huge month, or you have a huge month ahead of you, but already we're 13 days in. As of the 7th, you guys started a hackathon. I mean, let's talk about that. What's been happening there? I mean, like, What's got you guys excited? What are people creating? Can you talk about it? Can you give us a little bit of secret sauce or not secret sauce? I mean, obviously this is all open, but like, come on, guys, let's hear something good here.
Yeah, I mean, we've been planning this hackathon for a while. So it's called the Sovereign Data Hackathon. It's running currently on Gitcoin, and you can sign up and there's still time. So it started on the 7th and it runs until October 21st. And we've had over 500 developers sign up to participate. We've had a full week last week of programming. Different co-sponsors like Figment and Mask and Chainlink and Radical all gave workshops and talks. This week, it's just mostly building. And so there's active live channels for developers in the Ceramic Discord, which you can find at chat.ceramic.network. And everyone's in there asking questions. But I mean, the focus of this hackathon was really to get people building on the new tools. So did data store and self-ID and data models. And so I'm personally really excited to see not only the applications that people create on top of Ceramic and with IDX, but more than that, the data models and some of the standards that they create in the process of creating their application, because it's really going to serve to bootstrap and accelerate the sort of community generation of these things that really make it easy for every other developer in the space to build applications.
I think another interesting thing that people are hacking on this hackathon is a new DID method that will allow kind of DAOs, so specifically the Gnosis Safe DAO ecosystem, to also control data, similarly to how the NFTs can control data in Ceramic. So you actually have not only users and NFTs, but DAOs that control data and can create their profiles, because right now DAOs have been this kind of on-chain entities that are kind of very opaque.
Sick. Well, obviously, ever expanding and giving more clarity in this space is extremely important, and having the ability to do so with you guys and what you guys have been creating obviously is something that's ever changing as well and growing, and having these people come on board to be as part of the hackathon. I mean, 500 different developers. It's pretty impressive and exciting. And I mean, I guess the next part here is like, what's next for you guys? Like, what's going on with 3box Labs? What's going on? What I mean, obviously so much has been kind of focused over the launch, and it's been live for 3 months, and that shows a lot of great stability and kind of growth. But what else do you guys have planned?
I'll let Joel talk about the tech roadmap, but I mean, organizationally, 3box Labs is going through a lot of change right now. We've kind of always operated as a very lean team that stayed true to the mission and was core to what we needed to build. But now we're in the process of scaling up pretty much across all dimensions. And so, my focus these days is a lot of times on interviewing and finding great people to help us, get to the ultimate vision faster. We have projects basically like knocking down our door saying like, when this feature, when that, and we need to be able to answer that like faster and faster. And in the process, building the broader Ceramic community and really like creating a cohesive ecosystem that's welcoming not only to developers, but also users.
It's very exciting. So you guys currently are looking for solid people. Is that what I'm hearing a little bit?
Yeah, we're looking for solid people pretty much across the board. So if you know anyone that's talented and interested in sort of helping build the next platform for application development online, send them our way.
Ceramic Network. Look at that. How exciting. That's so sick. And Joel, I mean, like, what are your thoughts with, obviously in the organization, Michael has kind of given us clarity as to what's going on there. There's some great expansion. You guys have new potential new people joining that are helping build this, but tell us a little bit about the tech.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that are kind of in what do you say, like in in our views of like that are kind of like stars in our eyes that we're looking for.
Okay.
And so there's kind of short-term and long-term things, but like short-term, there's just like improvements to the way data is represented in Ceramic, and like making that just improving performance of the protocol, improving decentralization. One important milestone that we already mentioned is just like opening up the network. So like we don't need to have this launch program, and instead anyone can just like plug into the network. So that's like our next kind of big milestone. But then we also mentioned data models, and one thing that is going to be needed at some point is a better way of finding the right data model for your app and highlighting the data models that are important to the community. So some kind of like curation aspect there. And right now that's starting in like a GitHub repository, but that's going to evolve over time. In order, once there's like a huge amount of data models, there's going to be a need to like pick out the right one for you. On the protocol side, there's a few things beyond kind of just like opening up the mainnet, and so that basically includes some type of incentive mechanism. And so right now in Ceramic, you can run your own node and trustlessly pin the data to like keep it available. But for most users, that's like way too technical. So they kind of application developers and users kind of rely on like trusted nodes right now, and in the same way that you have like infrastructure providers for Ethereum nodes or for IPFS nodes. But we want to like make that less so. Like we don't want the users to have to trust some provider to keep their data around. So we're adding an incentive which allows users to pay a network of validators to basically keep track of their data and keep it available in the network.
That's it.
And so that's kind of like the next big stage of development for Ceramic.
Extremely exciting. I mean, what more could you ask for with the ability to kind of incentivize developers to participate in a little bit more decentralized, trustless manner? Pretty exciting. Well, guys, honestly, I mean, I can't thank you guys enough for your time, Joel, Michael. I mean, you've kind of unpacked a whole lot of information for us to kind of understand a little bit about, what IDX is, what that kind of protocol really allows for people to understand where we're going with Web3, where we're going with identity, where we're going with NFTs. And of course, we can't be more excited to be partnered with you guys for our ecosystem. So once again, thank you guys so very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks again for having us. This didn't even feel like an hour. It was great.
Yeah, thanks you both.
Thanks, guys. I just want to close it out to say, if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. You can also check out our YouTube playlist for more podcast episodes and other quality content. Be sure to check the description for links to our guest profiles and projects. Take care. See you all on the next episode of the Tokenverse.